Ladies and gents, and this is Can You Fix Climate Change by the channel Kurzgesagt in a nutshell. Here's another climate change video by Kurzgesagt. I think, Kurzgesagt made a few, at least 2-3 videos on this. But yeah, this is the latest video, obviously. This video was uploaded an hour ago and it has 250,000 views. I mean, damn, right? For past year, I've been watching Kurzgesagt video when they come out, and past few videos, right, 3 or 4 videos, this channel is getting a lot of view really fast. So I love how this channel is growing, right? It's soon enough it's going to be one of the biggest channel that is on YouTube, I hope. So yeah, it's just great, right? Animated science channel which tackles lots of scientific topic and philosophical topics too. So yeah, never before in human history have we been richer, more advanced or powerful, yet we feel overwhelmed in the face of rapid climate change. It seems simple on the surface, and how is it simple in the surface? I mean, most countries are democratic country, and how are you going to convince people to just leave everything basically that makes them richer just for those to save the planet? I mean, unless, entire world is dictated by one person who can force everybody to do certain things, I don't think this can be, salvaged like that. Greenhouse gases trap energy from the sun and transfer it to our atmosphere. This leads to warmer winters, harsher summers, dry places become drier, wet places wetter, countless ecosystem will die, while the rising ocean swallows coast and the cities we built on them. So why don't we just prevent all that? Well, it's complicated. Yeah, that's understatement, isn't it? Yeah, so climate change basically makes everything worse. Obviously, that's how the stability, that's the point, right? Our planet is stable for life. Now, climate change is making it unstable. That is what unstable means. Hot will become more hot, cold will become more cold. And, overall, it will just become issues like that before everything is really fucked up. So yeah, I mean, and also, lots of different type of species of animals are literally migrating to places that they've never been before, which is surreal to see it. All right, let's watch it.
Never before in human history have we been richer, more advanced, more powerful. And yet we feel overwhelmed in the face of rapid climate change. It seems simple on the surface. Greenhouse gases trap energy from the sun and transfer it to our atmosphere. This leads to warmer winters, harsher summers. Dry places become drier and wet places wetter. Countless ecosystems will die while the rising oceans swallow coasts and the cities we build on them. So why don't we just prevent all of that? Well, it's complicated. The public debate about stopping rapid climate change...
Yeah, I mean, at first, maybe, decades ago, people would have taken notice as they are right now. Maybe we could have done something to slowly stop it eventually. But right now, it's way too late, right? And any plans that people are doing is nowhere near enough to stop the climate change. So yeah, it's short term, right? Hotter things will become even more hotter. Colder things will become even more cooler. Right, as short term, obviously, eventually cooler things will become even hotter and everything will get hot. But right now, instability will bring that, right? Wetter places will be even more wet. There will be floods, right? Droughts will be way higher in places like, California is suffering that in the past few years, right? There are way too many, droughts. People don't have water and shit like that.
Often focuses on a few key features like coal plants, cars, or burping cows. And so the solutions are often simplistic. Rows of solar panels, biking to work, something sustainability.
Yeah,
and a huge talking point is personal responsibility. How you should change your lifestyle to prevent rapid climate change, which we'll find out together in the next few minutes. This is one of those videos where we want to encourage you to watch to the end, because to discuss real, doable solutions, we first need to understand the problem.
Yeah, I mean, just simply changing is not the way, because it's not the way for lots of people who are poor, right? I mean, there's lots of things you can change about yourself to, I guess, help with the climate change, but it also costs money at certain level, right? So if somebody is really poor, I don't think they have options like that.
Problem. A fuller picture. Modern industrial society, as we constructed it in the last 150 years, is inherently destructive to the planet. Basically, everything we do to make our lives easier, safer, and more comfortable is making things worse for the biosphere. The food we eat, the streets we walk on, the clothes we wear, the gadgets we use, the way we move around, and the pleasant temperatures we artificially create around us. While most people know about the serious impact of energy, beef, cars, and planes, many major polluters are barely ever talked about.
Yeah, seriously.
The emissions leaking out of landfills are as significant as the emissions of all the jets in the air. More CO2 is released to run our homes than from all cars combined. And
seriously, every time I see talked about cars, like cars are the the biggest problem, right? Everybody has to go electric, like buy Teslas or I don't know, some shit like that, to save the planet. It's important, right? Cars are creating this emissions, and stopping that is important. But don't talk like that's the only important part. That's the main reason why planet is going up, and that's one of the major pollutant. It's not, right? Home equipments and things pollute more, like he says. And there are lots of instances like that, like just constructing lots of things during the construction, concretes and shit, also creates a lot of emission compared to the other things. But people like to just focus on one specific thing here and there, like cars is the issue, planes are the issue apparently. Obviously they are not any small, but they are not the major. I mean, if you're going to talk about, let's talk about everything. Don't just stick to one specific thing, where common average people who don't know much about this, but just what they hear, will have this misconception, like if we stop cars and just make everything electric, we'll be fine. We don't have to change our lifestyle in any sense. No, talk about everything. Don't just talk about cars and just some specific thing that pollutes thing.
Emissions produced when making a new car is equivalent to building just 2 meters of road. So it is nice to switch to electric cars, but they won't solve anything if we keep building roads the same way. Fixing one small part of the industrial system is not enough. Each of the many different parts needs its own solution, and many of them aren't straightforward. But even where we know what to do, just because a solution exists doesn't mean we're able or willing to implement it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not cheap.
There are many grey areas in the fight against rapid climate change. The most prominent one is the divide between rich and poor. Emissions versus poverty. There is a clear connection between the prosperity of a nation and its carbon emissions. In other words, richer people tend to cause more emissions. So the key to fixing climate change is simply for the world's richest to cut back on their extravagant lifestyles, right?
Yeah,
While
that's gonna
this
happen.
would help, it wouldn't make the problem go away. This is because...
I mean, look, there was an instance in California, right, just a few years ago, when there was a drought. Like, they were instructed, everybody was instructed to conserve more water. So water, everybody has water, right? So people were told to don't waste water on grass and things, right? To have, you don't need greener grasses where there is, drought going on, basically. So there was a rich community somewhere who basically literally just said, like, we are not all equal. We pay more taxes because apparently that's the only thing that matters, taxes, right? We pay more taxes, so it's not right to basically subject us to have grayer ground or something like that, and not have green grasses. So we are going to water our grasses while people don't even have drinking water. That was so fucked up. And after hearing something like that, yeah, okay, rich people are not gonna give up their life, even come close to anything, right? They'll rather, most poor and middle class people burn and die than give up their thing, because they only want to conserve themselves, not the planet.
63% of global emissions come from low to middle income countries. Countries where most people are not living extravagantly, but are trying to escape poverty at worst and achieve a comfortable lifestyle at best. The unfortunate reality is that currently, escaping poverty and becoming middle class creates unavoidable emissions. So asking developing countries to cut emissions just looks like an attempt to keep them down. It's very hard to argue that a region should protect their primeval forests and spend money on solar panels instead of burning wood when it can't meet basic needs for significant parts of its population. But cutting back is not a popular demand, especially if the countries making these
Yeah, I mean, all the richer country basically created lots of global emission throughout the decades, and now suddenly telling other developing countries like, okay, you're polluting way too much, stop. Yeah, we are in this shit because you've been polluting for decades and even centuries now. You're gonna tell us that we just started, that don't do it? That's kind of hypocritical. But in the end, we are in this shit, so I guess we do have to do something, right? I mean, if people are just gonna be like, okay, let's not, don't tell us not to pollute since you've been polluting for centuries and decades. We want to grow too. But even there, I guess we have to see, like, understand that point. But in the end, we are in this shit. Everybody's going to die if we don't do something. And I guess all the developing countries like, India, China, and other countries basically realizing that, and they are, planning to create greener sources, solar panel projects and things like that. India is already doing that. China is obviously doing that, right, at major scale. So yeah.
These demands got rich by causing environmental damage in the past. So for billions of people, more emissions are a good thing, personally. When we forget about this, we tend to propose unworkable solutions. Take concrete. 8% of CO2 emissions are released by the concrete manufacturing industry. Okay, cool. Stop using concrete, right? But right now, concrete is also a cheap and easy way for growing populations in developing countries to build affordable housing. And there are many examples like that.
Not just cheaper by a mile compared to the alternate source. So that's not going anywhere.
Even rich countries aren't immune from disagreeing about rapid climate change solutions. Banning coal, gas and oil from the energy mix is slowed down by heated discussions about what should replace them. Citizens can
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, basically Donald Trump was trying to get coal plants up, right? He got out of the Paris Agreement, right? And this is the richest country in the world. So if the richest country in the world has hard time giving up, more cheaper sources because their citizens are suffering, what hope does other countries have if the richest country is doing that? Which means, everybody is basically short on money, right? Nobody's going to give up their cheapest way for some renewable energy. That's the problem we have. And, people can't even agree on anything. Entire world can't even agree on anything. That's why we have wars to begin with. Thinking that everybody will agree for the climate of the planet is, I don't think is ever going to happen. So I don't know. We are really fucked in the end, I think.
Strictly against nuclear power, but also oppose wind or solar infrastructure in their backyards. In principle, all of these issues can be overcome, but there are things we don't currently know how to overcome. The most problematic one is food. Emit or die. We will soon need to feed 10 billion people, and we don't know how to do that without emitting greenhouse gases. Because of the nature of modern food production that requires fertilizers or manure, it's impossible to have zero emissions food. Rice alone emits so much methane each year that it practically equals the emissions of all the air traffic in the world. What's worse is that the foods...
Not everybody travels through plane, man. So air traffic pollution is not that much as you would think compared to the other, right? Not everybody flies. There are significantly people flies. The number is staggering, but compared to the world's population, it's not that much.
We like the most emit the most. 57% of food emissions come from animal-based foods, although they make up only 18% of the world's calories and 37% of its protein. And as people across the world grow richer, they want more meat.
I fucking knew it. It's the non-vegetarian. You put down your McDonald's. You're the problem. Damn.
Traditional diets in most cultures were primarily plant-based with a little meat on top. But with the rise of industrial-style meat production and factory farming, meat has become a staple food, a regular indulgence in developed countries and a symbol of status and wealth in developing countries. Today, about 40% of the world's habitable land is used for meat production in some form or another, the size of North and South America combined.
What?
This is land we could...
What? Whoa! That's how many land throughout the world is being used just for meat production. Man, turn vegan. You don't need meat if that's the issue. Holy shit. Okay, I think there is a problem with the stats. There's no way that's the true, right? North and South America, that's way too big of a region. That much land is being used for meat production and dairy production. I mean, I don't know. It's, dairy, obviously. It's not just meat production. Dairy is also there. So maybe it makes sense. Yeah.
This is land we could otherwise allow native ecosystems to regrow, like forests in the Amazon, and suck carbon out of the atmosphere.
Get rid of the
But
cows,
instead,
I guess.
Most of it is used to feed animals. The available solutions are uniquely able to make everybody on the political spectrum, rich or poor, unhappy. Meat is highly emotional, and there are a lot of whataboutism arguments floating around, like comparing it to the worst sources of emissions. In the end, it's pretty simple.
Yo, man, don't take my meat. You don't need meat. Just eat some vegetables, man. What the fuck?
Eating less meat alone won't stop climate change, but we
Yeah,
also
obviously.
can't stop climate change without eating less meat. The same holds true for other things that are less crucial to our survival, but frankly not realistic.
Whoa, what? Entire transport. This is not just cars, plane, and boats. So, livestock are somewhat equivalent to the entire transport. And now everybody's just bitching like, okay, so let's shift to electric cars, that will solve it. Nobody's talking about let's get rid of the livestock, right? Most meats and things like that, dairy and things like that. Yeah. And I'm not just saying that because I'm vegetarian, right? I rely on dairy, right? My protein relies on dairy, right? And even when I'm saying, fuck it, fine, no dairy. So I also lose in this shit. It's not just because I'm vegetarian.
To our survival, but frankly not realistic to make go away. Like air travel, overseas shipping, mining, and the production of devices that play YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So what does this mean? Do we need to give up our way of life, and can
Yes.
the poor never achieve it? Can't some
Yes.
technology save us so we can continue to drive our big cars and eat meat every day? Solutions versus expenses. In principle, this technology already exists.
Yeah.
Direct air capture of CO2 draws carbon dioxide from the air so that it can be stored underground or transformed into products. So why aren't we implementing it in every industry everywhere? Because with the technology we have right now, this would cost some $10 trillion per year, or half the United States GDP. This money has to come from somewhere, and currently no one is offering it.
Yeah, it's 10
Just
trillion.
dumping these costs on massive polluters like steel mills and coal power stations would double the cost of their products, and so these industries that operate on very tight profit margins would go bankrupt. Getting the government to pay for it seems logical, but a lot of state resources are actually tied up doing the opposite, like subsidizing oil and gas, which seems counterintuitive but follows clear incentives. By artificially keeping fuel prices low, shipping and everyday goods are kept artificially cheap too, which has a major social impact on billions of people around the world. That creates political lobbies and incentives that perpetuate a cycle that makes it so hard to stop fossil fuel production. Meanwhile, very costly solutions for a far-off problem like carbon capture seem like they...
Yeah, basically, industries makes cheaper shit. So people buy more. People buy more because people like that. And since industries are making more profit, they would create lobbies that would basically, protest against that. And people are liking that cheap shit. So they are like, okay, fine. Fuck climate change. That's what we are at. Nobody is seeing the larger picture in the end. And the problem is, since it affects everyone on the planet, nobody wants to do anything about it. That's the problem. If it affected specific countries here and there are specific people, they would take incentive because they have to. But weirdly, I don't know how our psychology is made. Since it affects everyone on the planet, nobody wants to do anything. I don't know. That's just weird, man.
can wait, as technically nobody benefits from it right now. Some argue that a move away from capitalism is the only solution to this mess. Others insist that markets should be even freer without any interventions like subsidies, and some suggest that we need what's referred to as degrowth, and to cut back as a species overall. But the truth is that
a market should be freer, obviously. That's where the companies grow, but freer in a sense that it doesn't affect and hurt people, which climate change does. You can't make market freer if the market kills the planet. I mean, that doesn't work, right? I mean, in the end, people have their, life, free life. They can do whatever they fucking want, but can't kill people. This is kind of similar to that. You can't hurt others. You can have your free market, but only if it doesn't hurt other people's, like climate change, which hurts everybody.
At least as of now, no political system is doing an impressive job at becoming truly sustainable, and none have really done so in the past. We also don't have the time to figure this out and do a lot of experiments. We must implement solutions now. Not just to halt the release of all possible greenhouse gases, but also to start reducing the amount of CO2 in the air. It's too late to just mend our ways, we have to actively correct our past mistakes. With every year we waste, more extreme changes will be unavoidable.
Damn.
Okay, let's take a deep breath. Rapid climate change and the world we live in are complicated. So here is where you, dear viewer, come in again. Could you please fix the climate? A narrative of our time is that we are all responsible for rapid climate change, that everyone needs to play their part. Why don't you buy a new electric car? Why don't you replace your gas stove with an electric one? How about you double glaze your windows, stop eating meat, and switch off your lights? Shifting responsibility from the largest carbon emitters to the average person, you, is much easier to do than solving problems. There's an extra bonus if solving rapid climate change sells a new product. If you don't have the money or time for these things, you should feel bad. It's an effective message because it's true. The quickest way to cut CO2 emissions would be if all rich populations on Earth drastically changed their lifestyles and if the people on the rise would not seek to achieve it, favoring the climate over comfort and wealth. If you're able to watch this video, that includes you. But we've just witnessed a global experiment in staying at home, not using transport, and consuming less during the coronavirus pandemic. And all it did was reduce CO2 emissions by 7% for 2020.
Yeah, so basically, obviously, everybody should take incentives, obviously, initiatives, like to do things like, obviously cycling if need be, even though I feel like that's impractical, not all major cities. I did the video about that by Jay Foreman yesterday. And obviously, people had the comments like, okay, people had issue with what I said. But in the end, I know what I'm talking about, right? It's not really practical to think that everybody in the major cities will just travel with cycling. Yes, short distances, sure, but not at the major scale. Electric cars feels more sensible, but it has become sensible in past few years, right? For 10 years or so, people have been talking about, Prius. All the celebrities have been driving Prius, Toyota Prius, thinking, oh, look at that, I'm saving the planet. Even though 10 years ago, Prius was creating more emissions than M3 at the long term, right? Because electric cars was not perfected yet. But now it is, right? Electric cars now does work, right? It does lower the emission overall, even with the production of it. I know there are people who argue like creating all those batteries, right, creates pollution. Yeah, but short term. Long term, when you use it, it creates less pollution than your car overall, right? And obviously, generating electricity also create pollution, right? Those power plants don't just work on nothing. But, like a mile with gasoline powered car and a mile on an electric car will use way too much, emission, I guess. I mean, the level of electricity it uses for that mile is way less than gasoline would. It's more efficient, that's why. So in the end, obviously, electric cars now shifting to electric cars, even in India, basically, there are affordable cars now that are electric, which was not the case before. It has just become like this for past 2-3 years. I'm not saying it picked up, but it's in the right direction. Sooner or later, it will happen. And since the major countries around the world are going electric, it is going to become a trend. Everybody wants to be like that, like he said. So if people in US, UK, and everywhere else just driving electric cars, people have this mentality like, oh, people in UK and US is driving electric cars. I have a affordable electric car here. Why not buy that? So that will basically pick up. There are mopeds that are electric, which has become somewhat common here. I see that all the time. So I don't know. I feel like this is good, but I don't think this is going to solve anything because we need to have a major scale drastic change that nobody's going to do, right? You can't make entire world to agree to that. That's why, the Paris Accord or whatever that was, right? Climate change thing that everybody agreed to was pretty crucial. Obviously, US pulled out of that. I don't know if they rejoined it or not with the new, administration, but I don't know. That is something, but even that I don't feel like is enough. Right now we are at the stage is something is better than nothing, but none of that is, I guess enough. So I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah.
Asking average people to solve rapid climate change breaks down when we look at the scale of the problem. Personal contributions towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions are nice, but they are dwarfed by the systemic reality of global emissions. The concept of your personal carbon footprint was popularized by the oil producer BP in a 2005 ad campaign. Arguably one of the most effective and sinister pieces of propaganda that still seriously distracts all of us from the
BP of all people, BP. The Gulf League, those people.
Reality of the situation. If you eliminated 100% of your emissions for the rest of your life, you would save 1 second's worth of emissions from the global energy sector. Even the most motivated person can't even make a tiny dent.
Seriously.
When we put together the dangers of rapid climate change, the scale of emissions and the lack of consensus over how to solve it, the challenge seems insurmountable. It can cause decision fatigue and moral licensing where you no longer feel bad about behaving in a counterproductive way. We have struggled a long time with this, which is why this video took us so long to make. So, what can you actually do? There are many different takes, and they are passionately discussed. We don't know who's right, so we can only offer you the
only thing you can do is try to elect people who wants to do drastic climate change things. That's the only thing you can do. Any small shit here and there is not going to matter that much, right? I mean, it would have mattered decades ago, but now it's not going to matter that much. We are at that stage.
The Kurzgesagt perspective and opinion. Opinion part. What can you actually do? We need a different way to think and talk about rapid climate change. An all-encompassing systemic approach, nothing less than changing the fundamentals of our modern industrial societies. As discussed in frustrating length, the personal responsibility angle is overplayed. For systemic changes in technology, politics and the economy of this magnitude, we need to influence the people at the levers. Politicians need to know and feel strongly that the people care, that their own success depends on tackling rapid climate change. When governments and local politicians are reluctant to change laws that affect their biggest tax contributors or campaign donors, we need to vote them out and vote in people who respect science. We need to hold them accountable for implementing the most effective climate change strategies. Not waste our time with things like banning.
Look, here's the thing. People are, debating if Earth is round or flat. I mean, people are debating literal, basic scientific facts, right? People are debating that because I don't believe this scientist, right? A guy can basically walk into the US Senate with a snowball and thinking, where's climate change? So I don't know what's going to happen, right? I mean, look, entire world has to change. Like he said in the video, all these richer countries has been polluting for decades and even centuries, right? Polluting that's why they became rich like that. And then now all the developing countries like India and China, which are polluting more than any other country, it's not fair to tell them like, don't do that. Don't do what we've been doing for decades, but now it's, we're telling you not to do that. That's not fair. But in the end, right now we are in this shit. So we have to stop the, emission. We can't just say like, you haven't been polluting for long time. You just started because you're developing countries. But in the end, we have to stop it. I know it's not fair, but you have to stop polluting, right? I mean, we have to understand that. But it has to be, global scale effort. In the end, richer countries are polluting more per person than any other developing countries. Developing countries are only polluting more because there's so many population there. So everybody has to change. Everybody has to, elect people who do something about it. But seeing the trend, I don't think that's likely, right? Because, there are majority of people, not majority, major section of people, right? In different sections here and there of the different population who are even debating if scientists are right or not. That's just fucked up. If a doctor came to you and tell you have cancer, you're not going to say that, I don't know, man, I disagree with you. I don't think you're right, doctor, and walk off home. No, you're going to take that seriously. So all these people are saying scientists are wrong. It's just, I don't even know what to say to that, right? This guy has more brain cell than I guess you'll ever have in, in 10 of your life or something. So, debating the scientists are wrong, right? I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. So I don't know what's going to happen. We are fucked basically.
Plastic straws, but by moving the big levers: food, transportation and energy, while not forgetting the smaller ones like cement or construction. When industries fight against changing their ways for fear of losses or in an honest attempt to protect their own, we need politicians to change the laws and incentivize the deployment of existing technologies and massively invest in innovation for the fields where we don't have great solutions yet.
Not gonna happen.
There's no reason that the profit interests of industries could not match the need to reduce carbon emissions as much as possible. And if they still don't cooperate, harsh punishments and regulation need to force or bankrupt them.
As far as government goes, I don't think it's gonna happen. But one thing good about it is when the Trump pulled out of the Paris Agreement, lots of major companies around the world said that we are still going to follow through the Paris Agreement and will try to reduce our emissions and take lots of greener approach, even though the president just pulled out. So I don't know, maybe there is hope to it, right? Maybe people will see the light, like in the end we are all going to die. So how about let's pull down a bit and go green as much as we can. I know it's about profit, but money don't mean shit when you're dead.
It's still unrealistic that change of that scope can be forced onto a worldwide economy quickly enough, because many low-carbon technologies still need a lot of time and research, which means they're expensive. But more companies will make more efficient carbon capture systems, tasty meat alternatives, better batteries, cement alternatives, and so on if there's a clear and growing demand. And if you're affluent enough, you can do your part by investing in these things right now while they're still expensive. These are the mechanisms.
I don't know if for electric expensive. Is electric expensive? Because nowadays I feel like the cost has come down close enough for the gasoline powered cars. So I don't know about that.
That will drive the prices down later on. So this is basically what you can do. Vote at the ballot, vote with your wallet. There are too many opposing interests and complicated grey zones. In the end, if we truly get the systemic change we need, everybody will be unhappy about some aspect of it. Only if we all accept that some solutions will have negative impacts for us can we have an honest conversation and make progress. Everybody will be a little unhappy, and that's okay. This is the best you can do. You can deal with the reality of the situation and promote your priorities through your behavior and your actions. And while you do so, you can eat less meat, fly less, or get an electric car. Not because you should feel guilty if you don't, or because you naively believe that you alone can stop rapid climate change, but to do your tiny, tiny part for the systemic change we need. This video was supported by Gates Notes,
Yeah.
the personal blog of...
Alright. I don't know, man. I'm cynical on this matter because people around the world, governments are literally, ignoring that there is such thing as climate change. That's what they're debating. I'm pretty sure they know that there is such thing as climate change, but because lots of people bribe this politician, they are going on the Senate floor and saying that we don't believe in these scientists, we don't believe in climate change, and all their bases, right, all their people basically hear that and follow them blindly. Like if these politicians are saying climate change is not real, then all the other left-wing, people are lying. That's just, I don't know how they're going to overcome that, because there are lots of people in US, because lots of news come from US. So, US is the only example I can think of, but this is happening everywhere around the country, all the countries. So in US, basically, there are lots of, flyover states and places like that where they don't even, they're clueless, basically. When somebody said, do you know this happened? I don't know about that, but I don't trust these left-wing people. And, they are saying that this, climate change is real. These scientists are saying climate change is real, but I don't know about that, so I don't trust them. Yeah, you don't know about that, but scientists do, and they're telling you this is real. Every time somebody comes on that, I don't understand details and science behind this, but I don't believe these scientists. I don't even understand what the sentence even mean. You don't understand it, obviously, but these scientists who are professional, they are smart, they have fucking PhDs, They are telling you, most of them, 95, 98% of them are telling you that climate change is real. I think that's overwhelming odds. Just take them for their word. You are not going to go to a lab and do all the testing and things because you can't. Not everybody can be scientists. Only smartest people of the world can be that. So all these people who are basically doing some common job like working on a store or something, coming out and saying, I don't trust these scientists. It's just fucking weird, like, man. These scientists have more brain cell than you, right? That you'll ever have in your 10 lifetimes. So I don't know. Making sure that everybody agrees on this at major scale. Only thing, like I said in the past videos about climate change from this channel, that when it's absolutely end, like lots of cities are underwater, major scale, people are suffering economically and everywhere, when it can be seen like, holy shit, we are about to be fucked. And then people will do major scale things to stop it. And by then it will be so late that, people are going to suffer economically, and even, people will die in masses trying to stop climate change, which is going to be disastrous. And planet will probably survive at that point, but we'll have losses in every sectors. And people will basically scratch their head like how this happened. Alright people, that was Can You Fix Climate Change by the channel Kurzgesagt in a nutshell. Damn, I talked a lot in this video. But yeah. Alright, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, check out the reaction. There's a link in the description. Check out the cast for place, check out the link cards in here. I'll see you next time.